Ladies and gentlemen, the United Workers' Party Deputy Prime Minister in waiting.
I heard the Prime Minister pronouncing period poverty.
Mr. Speaker, I now move to some new policy proposals. Effective September this year, the Ministry of Education will be given an annual allowance of $250,000 for the purchase of feminine hygiene products for secondary schools to reduce the incidence of period poverty.
Let me tell you something. When a country has reached to a point where mothers cannot buy pads for their daughters, it tells me that my country has sunk below the line.
Scotland has become the first country in the whole world to make sanitary products free for all.
A study by Kotex shows us how this impacts millions of people. 2 in 5 people with periods say they have struggled to purchase period products due to a lack of income at some point in their life. Now, 1 in 5 girls have missed school due to not having the products they need.
I want to ask the mothers who are listening to me tonight, if your daughter's period comes on the weekend, will you go and knock on the school door and ask the security to open there for you so you can get some pads? I ain't polishing no language. I ain't calling no sanitary napkin.
These schoolgirls in Lebanon are learning how to make colorful sanitary pads. 3 out of 4 women here struggle to afford menstrual products.
Period poverty and its impact right here in Jacksonville.
Philip J. Pierre, you should be ashamed as Prime Minister of this country that we have sunk so low.
Did you know that a lot of people in the UK and around the world struggle with so-called period poverty? A survey of people in the UK who menstruate found that in 2022, 1 in 4 struggled to afford period products, and as a result, 1 in 5 used makeshift materials like toilet roll and sponges.
Let me tell you something. There's something that we call pride and integrity. There is something that we call decency.
When I was studying in Sweden, I tried to buy a sanitary napkin and I couldn't find one.
Menstrual hygiene is essential to the well-being and empowerment of women.
Instead of doing things to improve the lot of the average St. Lucian, your solution to the problem is $250,000 to the Ministry of Education to buy pads to put in schools. Let me tell you, not even in Haiti have I heard that they implement a program of this nature.
Local nonprofits are teaming up to tackle period poverty happening right here in Utah.
Other countries are struggling too. In India, 70% of women said they can't afford sanitary napkins and use alternatives such as rugs, dried leaves, and newspapers. In Malawi, a single sanitary pad can cost the equivalent of an entire day's salary.
So Labour Party knows that they have reduced us.
It does affect a great deal of people, and there has been more of an awareness about period poverty, and more organizations are looking for support in drives for menstrual supplies and such, which is obviously what we're doing.
As a man, it's not a lady that's the Minister of Education. Will the schools have to report to you so you can know how many young women in the school got their periods during the time that they were in school?
Menstruation can create barriers for women in work, education, and sports.
Being afraid to go to school or not having enough supplies or not even knowing where to get it.
And while about 25 million women in the U.S. live in poverty, according to the U.S. Census Bureau, menstrual products are not covered by food stamps.
And people are finally having the courage to say, you know what, I can't leave my house, I can't go to school, I can't do things without these products.
And do you have sinister motives for trying to find out how many young women can afford pads in the schools?
Mais ça c'est azo dai shiva we oswe when the period too. Sans honte.
I want to thank my constituency branch.
One of the issues that we're facing right now is the lack of access, again, to period products.
You know, there are some things that politicians must know. When they open their mouth and speak about it, it will be scrutinized.
We as women only see it because when you go into ladies' loos, often when you shut the door, there's an advert on the back of the door for a charity dealing with period poverty.
And these disgusting men in the Labour Party who have no respect for young women in this country and are proud to come and boast about which young woman they have been with should never be allowed to come close to our young daughters in this country.
At least 500 million people around the world struggle with menstrual hygiene management. And in the US, roughly 16.9 million menstruators are living in poverty.
These Labour Party men are disgracing the politics of St. Lucia.
Period poverty.
Activists and NGOs the world over have embarked on the hashtag End Period Poverty campaign. To this end, on Tuesday, Sandals Regency Latok made a donation of sanitary products to the St. Lucia Crisis Center.
But today you all want to pretend as if you all care so much about the young women of this country. Mr. Prime Minister, you owe St. Lucia an apology.
These are all maxi pads?
Suffering in silence, using paper towels or whatever I could use, and not having a voice to articulate that this was a need.
And I believe that it is disrespectful that a young lady should have to go to a school and ask for sanitary napkins. There must be a better way. There must be a way to maintain the integrity of our young women. Their pride and their dignity must be uplifted, not being brought to the gutters.
The United Nations says 1 out of every 10 menstruating youth misses school because of period poverty.
That is what our schools have become under the St. Lucia Labour Party.
In Scotland, Parliament has just approved plans to make sanitary products freely available to all women.
I think this government is so clueless. But you know what? This is another election gimmick by the Labour Party. It's not about caring about the young women. So what was happening 4 years ago? What was happening 3 years ago? What was happening 2 years ago?
The government also announced that the removal of the 12.5% tax on feminine hygiene products took effect in August 2023.
So last year, before election budget, is all of a sudden you wake up one day as Minister of Education and you realize that's a problem?
Prime Minister Pierre, having secured approval from the House of Parliament, recently amended VAT legislation to reduce prices on select consumer goods by 12.5%. The Prime Minister's VAT amnesty included sanitary napkins and towels.
Sanitary towels and napkins and similar articles of any materials, Mr. Speaker. Single mothers who want to bring up their children in a respectable way, Mr. Speaker. And they have to make a choice, Mr. Speaker. A choice.
Here's an issue many people don't even think about, and that is the cost of menstrual products. They can average anywhere from $200 to $300 a month, and research shows almost 2/3 of low-income women in the U.S. just can't afford these things, and sometimes they have to choose between buying food or these products. It is called period poverty.
You see how mentally deranged the men we have in government are? Because it's only a mentally deranged person will think like that.
end period shame.
What is period poverty? The Journal of Global Health Reports defines it as a lack of access to menstrual products, hygiene facilities, waste management, and education that affects many women globally, causing physical, mental, and emotional challenges.